Maureen, thank you so much. Kristen, thank you so much. And obviously Ellen for putting this fabulous program together. And everybody this isn't this the loveliest library in Austin? This is just so beautiful. And you know, on my way out, I can stop off in Trader Joe's and spend way too much money. But I'm really thrilled to share these photographs with you and the story of my very, very long journey with Black Rodeo. So I think, you know, Maureen did a great job of telling how it all came about. I took these photos at Black Rodeos in the late 70s, thinking I would, oh, well, that was very swanky, wasn't it? Oh, look, Rose is going to help me out. Thank you, sir. Thinking I would publish a book. But at that point, there was not only no interest in a book about Black cowboys, there was literally sometimes no belief in their existence. I'm sure. And frankly, I still run into the question, are there really Black cowboys? So back then in when I was trying to get this published in the early 80s, what I heard from publishers across the country was no, no, and hell no. So, and you know, I have to remind you, this was in the days of analog film. So it was an expensive and an arduous process. You know, you're rolling film, you're shooting film, developing film in the darkroom and printing each individual print. So, and I had just gotten out of graduate school. You know, I was broke. So my heart was broken, my bank account was broken. As Ellen mentioned, I put these things in, and archivists cringe when I say this. I put it in a plastic tub from Target and shoved them all under the bed. And you know, they would have stayed there had it not been for a worldwide pandemic. And like so many of the rest of you, I got shamed by Marie Kondo into attempting to tidy up my house. And so I hauled out now let me see. Here's my next technological challenge. Advancing. Let me make sure. Here. Hooray! My savior. Yeah, that thing where you turn it on.
Yeah, it's good. You're good. Yeah.
Turning on and off. So beyond my technological ability. So, you know, I haul these books out of these pictures, you know, with my big tub out, and immediately I looked at these photographs and I felt this tremendous obligation to get this story into the world. And fortunately, at that time, you know, this book was published last year. For the last, I'd say 3 years, or you know, certainly beginning with Beyonce's album with the word cowboy in it, there's been a huge reclamation of Black heritage in the West. So I was very fortunate in the timing of that. And UT Press was thrilled to publish it. So I pulled all those boxes of negatives and prints out from under the bed, and we went to town. But before we get to that point, let's go back over half a century ago. And I'd like to tell you how my journey with Black Rodeos started. Oh, there she is, that eager young UT photographer. So this was 1974, and the University of Texas stuck a camera in my hand. As I pointed out, this was a time before smartphones, when having an actual camera in your hands was like having a passport to anywhere you wanted to go. And there were many places in Texas as a newcomer that I wanted to go. I was fascinated by all the oddities of the state. I photographed rattlesnake roundups, sorority rushes, honky-tonk dance halls, a troop of snow monkeys relocated from Kyoto, Japan to Laredo, and rodeos, especially rodeos. I was a highly unlikely candidate to fall under the spell of rodeo. Child of the military, the only livestock I ever encountered growing up came in shrink-wrap packages from the base commissary. My interest, however, was not primarily in what happened in the arena. No, What intrigued me was witnessing how each group remade this most American, most mainstream of pastimes in their own image. How they created distinct worlds that orbited the arenas on their own unique trajectories. This seems to be jumping ahead. Okay, that's the first one I went to.
Do they need to back up?
No, this is where I need to be. I'll just keep.
Okay, and is the sound okay, you guys, or do you need?
No, she's
Okay.
far away from the mic.
We need the mic to be right on your mouth, I think.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, I'm gonna put this kind of like, I can put it in your pocket so that way it doesn't, is that okay?
Thank you. No, that's wonderful.
Right, that way, there we go.
That's now you got me all set up. So here we are. The first mainstream rodeo I attended was the Stanford Cowboy Reunion. As with all the mainstream rodeos I visited, it seemed like the organizers believed that Hollywood had thought that the job description for cowboy ended with only whites need apply. The police rodeos I photographed were more of the same. Kids rodeos were junior versions of the basic model, training the cow kids how to be genuine cowboys. The young women at what were called girls' rodeos back then were also trying to prove that they too were cowboys. It was clear, though, that many of the attendees did not consider them the real thing. I heard more than one beer-gutted spectator call out, "Ride the women, not the bulls." So that was super classy. I witnessed superb horsemanship and world-class roping at the White Mountain Apache Rodeo in Arizona, where I also made a new friend. At a sold-out rodeo in Gallup, New Mexico, I photographed this amazing barrel racer. When I asked the Navajo team roper why rodeo was so popular, he answered, "Because there's not enough water on the res for golf courses." Navajos have wicked senses of humor. At the Chatiatas I visited, I witnessed superb horsemanship, a grand sense of pageantry, impressive outfits, and even more impressive attitudes. All of these different kinds of rodeos taught me a little bit more about the myth of the cowboy, but I don't think I truly understood its power until I shot several old-timers rodeos. For example, look at this guy here. In spite of being injured and having bones brittle as peppermint sticks, this old buckaroo happily strapped on the spurs and climbed aboard a bronco for one more chance at 8 seconds of glory. One more chance to win that big buckle that renewed his right to call himself cowboy. All right, yes, I photographed them all. I even heard of a nudist rodeo in California. I never did get close enough to that one to learn the true meaning of bareback riding, to say nothing of rawhide. But the first time I actually saw a black cowboy competing in a rodeo was at the Huntsville Prison Rodeo. An article in Ebony magazine pointed out that the only truly desegregated rodeos in the South at that time were, in fact, prison rodeos. Back in those pre-internet days, it was not easy finding out about any non-professional small-town rodeos. I first heard about the existence of black rodeos at this livestock auction in Clovis, New Mexico. Ultimately, this photo became emblematic of my entire project, which was to return the black cowboy to the center of the frame. The first black rodeo I ever documented was held at an iconic venue for cowboys and cowgirls of color, the Diamond L Ranch and Arena. Once located on far South Main outside of Houston, the fabled Diamond L was the epicenter of the Gulf Coast rodeos that comprised what was known as the Soul Circuit. It was at that first rodeo that I saw posters like the ones behind this roper and found out about the next rodeo. At that rodeo, I saw posters for the next one. Whoop, I just turned techno boobery here. Am I back on? Yes.
Let's see. I think so. I think we're good. Is it?
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
we're good. Yeah, we're good. It just got kind of pushed off. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, well, I'll just put this here where I cannot touch it or do anything further with it. So these posters that you're seeing here, you know, every rodeo would have one and they would direct me to the next one. And they took me on a journey through these smallest of small Texas towns like El Campo, Egypt, Fresno, Kendleton, Plum, Pin Oak. I remember when I first started bringing my photos that I took at Black Rodeos back to Austin, I had more than one friend say some version of, wow, I didn't know there were black cowboys. Now, as you all realize, nobody said it in a mean way. It was simply that Hollywood and popular history of that time had taught us that cowboys had three defining characteristics: giant hat, boots, and white skin. So I felt like I had an unknown world and I was really excited to share it. Almost more reunion than rodeo, the rodeos I visited in these rural outposts celebrated community as much as competition. My photos capture the final days of a time when the sport was still rooted in the business of actual ranching, when many, if not most of the competitors had grown up roping and riding. Rodeo skills at that time and place were honed not in the back of a mechanical bull, but in the saddle of a horse the cowboys had most likely broken and trained themselves. I photographed men and women who knew how to rope, dope, brand, and dehorn a steer. In spite of this expertise, the other factor that shaped Black rodeos was that, except for a few rare exceptions, Black competitors and spectators were not allowed at white rodeos in Texas. This injustice was one of the many elements that shaped Black rodeos into such extraordinary affairs. Whatever the secret sauce was, I could smell it from the first whiff of barbecue that invariably greeted a visitor. I could see it in the sight of a shoot man wearing a shirt that sported the Jackson 5. And I could hear it in the sound of boogie fever pouring forth from the loudspeakers. From the very first, it was clear that Black rodeos were unlike any of the others. At the rodeos that I knew in the 1970s, friendship and fun were always the grand prizes. To help you experience the magic of this bygone world, I would like to take you on a journey through an imaginary single day at the best of all the Black rodeos, a Juneteenth rodeo. Although the photos you will see were shot at several different arenas and times between the years 1977 and 1979, taken together, they faithfully convey the spirit of a Juneteenth rodeo. Our dream day starts early with the arrival of Burnell Jammer. Though some may know Jammer as the father of NFL star Quentin Jammer, that day he was the all-important pit master. So let's step now into that long-ago rodeo and imagine being greeted by the mouth-watering aroma of meat slowly smoking over post stove. That fragrance goes a long way towards creating the party vibe that thrums throughout the day. For many, the holiday marks the day when a parade of former residents comes home from a big city, usually Houston, to the rural communities where they've grown up. Tailgates are popped, lawn chairs are popped open, and refreshments are passed around as everyone catches up on the latest news. The buzz of happy conversation and laughter. Always, always so much laughter fills the air. With the adults' attention on catching up on the latest gossip, the cow kids are off on their own adventures. There are just so darn many fences to climb. And so many super cute junior buckaroos to flirt with. Yeah. Other kids with more sanctified aims, run around selling jumbo bars of chocolate for Ebenezer Baptist Church, while the junior ropers spread out and find a peaceful pastoral spot to limber up their lassos. I know, never mind, I know exactly what's going wrong. It's me. And some just take a moment to share a pickle with baby sister. Even the grown-ups cut up a bit. Clearly, stoicism, lack of emotion, is not a requirement for Black cowboys and girls. By mid-morning, a deep-throated rumble announces the arrival of the stock contractor's semi-trailers. The opposing team has arrived. The air brakes hiss, the mammoth vehicles shudder and are still. To the bellowing of the dogging steers and roping calves, the snorting of bucking broncos and the thundering clangs of bulls slamming against the metal walls of the livestock trailer, spectators start to gather in the stands. You know, I'm gonna just, can I get a little technical help? I'm gonna pause this for a minute. This is my problem. I have it on an automatic advance. That's why it's speeding through, and I need to figure out how to turn that off.
Which one are you on? Here.
Thank you all for your indulgence here. My apologies.
I wonder if it's, I think, let's try that and see if it, oh, no.
So my brilliant husband figured this out for me. I was doing an event where I just needed to run continuously, and so he figured this out. No, I need to figure out how to go away. That was my great smart thing I did in life, which was marry an engineer. So as a writer, I had to have someone who could, I think we like engineers, somebody who could take care of the technical stuff, you know, and knew how to add. And I'm sorry, this is the most tedious thing in the world, to have somebody display their technological ignorance in front of you. Yet here we are. Thank you. These two lovely people here have excused my incompetence. I appreciate. Wait, hello.
Hello. So I wanted to find out, did you only go to one prison rodeo, or were there others that you went to?
I went to the I'm gonna show my it was pretty much only one prison rodeo. Actually, I did photograph two, but am I going to show those? No, I'm not.
Well, you were lucky to do that because Huntsville actually ended up ending the prison rodeo
Correct.
process. There were several years where it went on.
Yeah.
There was a lot of complaints about it because the Black rodeo participants didn't have the same kind of safety protocol that occurred in the white rodeo.
Yeah.
Because they were prisoners, it's just whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, and there was also, there felt to be a level of coercion because, you know, these guys are in prison for the rest, you know, they get, I kind of think I photographed one of the main reasons why the Huntsville rodeo ended. And so I was at the Huntsville Prison Rodeo, and I was up on a catwalk, you know, where the livestock runs in and out, and so looking down, photographing. And they had this event called Hard Money. You know, if something's hard in prison, it's gonna be hard. So they would get an empty Bull Durham sack, put in $25, and tie it between the horns of a bull, and then turn the convicts loose to attempt to grab that $25. I like the way this mouth is dropping up. That's kind of my eyes like, whoa, so that's really not a good. And so this was happening, and my attention was on photographing, and then suddenly, medics start scrambling, ambulance starts, there's just everything comes to a dead halt, and I'm down there and photographing. I didn't really understand what I photographed because there was a lot of chaos at that point. People rushing in and the contestants rushing out. And then I got in the dark room. It was one of those, moments way back in the day when, you used to be able to develop prints and they would come up in your bath of developer, and you would see, did I get it? Did I not get it? And so I'm looking at this one picture I took, and they're bringing a guy on a stretcher underneath me. He's being accompanied by a priest, not a good sign. And the entire side of his face is sheeted in blood, like from about here down. Really looked like he'd gotten his eye gored out. But that was, very shortly after that, they ended. That was one of the last ones. But
I think, let's try it. I think it's okay.
Thank you.
Maybe. Yeah.
Saved from my ignorance. Okie dokie. Ba, 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 ba.
The trucks pulled up, the wheels squeaked.
She's following the story, and I like that. I like that. Yeah. Spectators start to gather in the stands. Rodeo Secretary Gladys Carr, affectionately known as the Queen Bee of the Diamond L, registers Jimmy Powell and collects his entry fee. Gladys Carr, a member of a large rodeo dynasty, is the heart of the day's events. She signs up all comers, collects entry fees, issues contestant numbers, and performs the all-important draws for the rough stock rider. This draws is the process of matching cowboy with bronc or bull, some quadruped with a name like Terminator, Gravedigger, Widowmaker, or Cuddles. Okay, maybe not Cuddles. Cowboys cluster together to compare draws. Those who've been assigned dinks moan that they'll never earn a winning score on such low energy mounts. The few who've drawn a spinner, a slinger, a shoot fighter, or any other fearsome rank crusher put on a brave face as they collect sympathy and tips from other cowboys about how to ride the possibly unrideable animal. And of course, you had to have a buddy to help you pin on your contestant number and hold your cigarette. Back behind the chutes, the cowboys help each other rosin up their riggins, the braided ropes that they hoe will keep them attached to their draw. As the cowboys get ready, there is just enough time for Lewis Brown to have a little bit more fun with his wife before the action starts and all attention turns to the arena. The first event, as you can see here, barrel racing, is the only one that women were allowed to compete in. And here we see Ernestine Rogers bringing it home for second place. Now, on to the bronc riding. Champion rough stock rider Archie Wyckoff gingerly settles onto a skittish bronc. Cowboys fear a shoot fighter, a nervous horse that can crush a man's leg just by leaning its 1,000 or so pounds the wrong way. The next rider out of the chute is Russell Mills. The announcer tells us that Russell's nickname is Scrap Iron because this cowboy can take a licking and keep on ticking. Russell takes a tumble and the announcer chides him saying, "Ooh, cowboy got his iron scrapped today." And then he warns bronc riders, y'all be better getting minds on it because these broncs be planning on a late summer and an early fall. The crowd is sympathetic, as Scrap Iron does indeed dust himself off and keep right on ticking. Here again is the multi-talented champion, Archie Wyckoff. Wyckoff, who rode bulls, broncs, and was also a steer wrestler, was famous for having been featured alongside Muhammad Ali in a 1972 documentary, Black Rodeo in Harlem. Wyckoff shows off his versatility when he hangs on for 8 interminable seconds and rides his bull to the buzzer. There's a lull in the action and perhaps time for some existential musing as the arena is cleared for the next event, steer wrestling. In a class all its own is steer wrestling. Once popularly known as bulldogging, this event was created by the renowned Black cowboy and Wild West performer, Bill Pickett. Many count steer wrestling as the most dangerous and a flamboyantly dangerous sport. It's certainly the fastest, with the world record sitting at 2.4 seconds. After all the death-defying action, it's time for a visit to the concession stand. Maybe find out if that barbecue is as tasty as it smells. This cowboy hero gives a whole new meaning to the term drive-up window. During the intermission at many rodeos I attended, there would be a moment for this close-knit community to remember someone who had passed that year. The person I would like to remember is Rufus Green Sr., seen here at his ranch near Hempstead, showing his grandson, Tuffy Green, the finer points of tie-down roping. Here Green, on the far right, watches approvingly as his grandchild gets the job done. Known as the godfather of Black Rodeo, it was my great good fortune to be one of the lucky ones this renowned horseman took under his wing. A roping phenomenon with a riveting story, which I tell in my book, Juneteenth Rodeo. Green competed in more than 2,000 rodeos, racking up enough wins to become one of the very first Black cowboys to be awarded membership in the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. Green earned the title of Godfather of Black Rodeo as much for his majestic spirit and benevolent mentorship of a couple of generations of champion ropers as for his roping skills. The sun is really beating down at the end of the intermission, and everyone seeks shade wherever they can find it. Though there are always a few white spectators in the crowd, sometimes they didn't want to be photographed, as in the case of the four-fingered man on the right in this image, hiding his face from the camera. It was an honor to meet this pair of realer-than-real cowboys, the Thorne brothers, Ed and Buster, and to hear their stories of working fabled Texas ranches like the 4-6s and the Shanghai Pierce. The other story these cowboy brothers told me was about a woman freed from slavery after the Civil War who joined the Buffalo Soldiers. This became the basis for my 10th novel, Daughter of a Queen, based on the life of Cathay Williams, the only woman known to have served with the Buffalo Soldiers. Robert Degas, seen here with his wife, pays T-shirt tribute to the legendary Myrtis Dightman, the Jackie Robinson of rodeo. We'll talk more about Dightman in a minute, but now it's time for the roping to start. We've got tie down, we've got team roping, and apparently we have drone-assisted roping. Actually, that unmanned craft hovering at the top center of the frame is just a dragonfly that flew too close to my lens. Looks like a drone though, doesn't it? When the last calf is roped and the heat is becoming unbearable, it's time to switch on the arena lights and have a night rodeo. All right, let's start off the evening with the trailblazing icon, Myrtis Dightman. I'd always considered this particular image to be a sad mistake. As you can see, it was the last shot on the roll and a third of it is cut off, but I've come to really like this picture. Not only is Dightman standing in front of a fan wearing a Myrtis Dightman t-shirt, but the hero himself appears to be reaching into another dimension. Let's just say the future, to anoint the next generation of cow heroes. And in this case, it's a little bitty, besandaled cowgirl. And also, did I say that daytime rodeo was a festive affair? If anything, a Juneteenth night rodeo was even more fun because when the sun and the temperature goes down, everyone loosens up just a little bit more. The action might even be enlivened with a few side bets. Now here in this photo, The wise cowboy Lewis Brown is telling the city girl photographer that she needs to get out the arena before the bull riding starts. Sadly, I didn't own a telephoto lens, and I had to take all my riding and roping shots from inside the arena. Fortunately, there was no untoward trampoline. On this magic night in 1978, a legend rode. His name is Taylor Howell Jr., but all his friends know him as Bailey's Prairie Kid. The kid had a few trademarks. Whenever he rode, Hull always wore a tie knotted over an impeccably white shirt, and he always had a cigar planted casually in his mouth. Notice here that his shirt remains unstained, his tie untucked, and that stogie stays planted right between his lips. It was a stroke of luck that I preserved this icon of skill and style on one of the final prize-winning rides of his storied career. All right, here the shootmen consult about how to run a timed event. Yeah, I always look at this photo, I wonder, does this Roper's horse dip, or does it only look like he's going for the can of Skoal in the Roper's back pocket? Take a little pinch twixt. So here we have a roper frozen at the crucial moment when horse and calf together have 6 hooves in the air, 2 on the ground, and the lasso is just about to hit its mark. When the last calf is roped, it's time for the judges to start comparing notes. The rough stuff judges consult with Gladys Carr on their final scores while the great Meredith Steitman listens in. The moment of truth arrives. Gladys Carr is about to deliver the final results to the announcer. There is jubilation for some when the scores are announced and trophies are distributed. For others, there are injuries lightened by the consolation of a trophy or two. One lucky champion even has his trophy examined by the hero celebrated on his t-shirt, Meredith Steitman himself. When all the trophies have been distributed, it's time to head to the nearby Blue Lagoon Saloon, where you will always be greeted at the door by a friendly voice. At the Blue Lagoon Saloon, the Schlitz and the champagne are always icy cold. The music is blazing hot, and gold Christmas tinsel on the ceiling wafts in the air conditioner breeze all year round. At the Blue Lagoon, there's giant dill pickle out of the counter, and that will run you a quarter. Cigarillo choices are Roytan, El Producto, or Prince Edward. At the Blue Lagoon, your road buddies will always be waiting to tip back a few with you. And everyone is welcome. At the Blue Lagoon, all the bulls and broncs are ridden again. All the calves are roped, the steers are wrestled, and the judges' bad calls are cursed. At the Blue Lagoon, everyone rides the perfect ride and wins the biggest trophy. At the Blue Lagoon, everyone dances with the prettiest cowgirl and the most handsome cowboy. And if you're lucky, Bailey's Prairie Kid might even prove that his moves on the dance floor are just as smooth as they are in the arena. And of course, at the Blue Lagoon, everyone wins the grandest of grand prizes that Black Rodeo's had to offer: friendship and memories of another unforgettable Juneteenth rodeo. The world I knew was one that will never again have the same players or the same pressures and limitations that made them the most vibrant, the most jubilant of them all. It was a world where the perfect Juneteenth rodeo ended after accomplishing what all Black rodeos accomplished: putting Black cowboys and cowgirls vividly, vibrantly where they had always belonged, right smack dab at the center of the frame. Thank you all so much for coming along with me to revisit a world where joy was the ultimate triumph. Questions? While you think questions, I'm gonna give you a little added bonus here. So this is a super happy ending. This is Bailey's Prairie Kid. And I tried really hard to get in touch with all my subject and, get their actual full names. I had a lot of rodeo nicknames like Bo Peep and Dynamite and Scrap Iron. And so I went back and tried to get their full names. And I had read an article. Bailey's Prairie Kid is from the small community of Bailey's Prairie. And there was have you heard of it? A plus. And there's an article about him. I knew he was alive, but I completely, obviously not on social media, did not apparently have a telephone. Anyway, I had no way. I was unable to contact him. And then great good fortune, Humanities Texas gave a grant so that these photos could become a traveling show, go around the state and hopefully back to the small communities where I took a lot of these photos. And the opening was pretty much last year at this time at the Neil Cochran House Museum, and he showed up. Oh. Yeah, and so this was fantastic. I got to look at his photos and talk, totally coherent, stayed the entire time, answers, charmed everybody. Everybody there wanted their picture taken with him. So my gosh, that was a happy ending. And I put that in because so Humanities Texas gave me a grant, or gave the show a grant, and it was scheduled to travel all around the state and some places out of state. And then was about ready to move on to its second venue, which is currently out Texas State, the Whitliff Collection. And Humanities Texas got doged. They got 65% of their funding cut. So they wrote me and said, we're not going to be able to, the show will not be able to travel any further. And man, that was a knife in my heart, because I really wanted the people in the photos, their families, their descendants, to see, what a glorious world they had created. And so I put it on Facebook and talked about how sad this made me. And lo and behold, Glorious Foundation stepped in and has funded it. So it's going to continue traveling. Yay for rich people giving their money to the right things. my opinion. So that's my happy ending. It's my happy ending to this story. Any questions? Any rodeo experience like that? Hello, sir.
The only black rodeo person I've ever met or knew was Leon Coffey.
Oh, yeah. Great clown. I interviewed him.
And we saw him at numerous black rodeo or regular professional rodeos or whatever.
Exactly.
And he was awesome and well loved.
Absolutely. And his entire family. So Leon Coffey, he was probably the most famous rodeo clown in Texas, and started a rodeo dynasty. So his children and grandchildren continued to participate in rodeos. And many people ask me if there are still black rodeos. And in fact, there are. There's a circuit called the Will Pickett Invitational. And also there's a circuit in Oakland. And the big difference, and why to me they're fundamentally different, is these are national rodeos. They take place, at least the Will Pickett, they take place in arenas in various cities, and people are invited, they travel to it. And what I loved so much about these rodeos was they came out of the community. They entirely came out of the community, where, so much a reaction to being shut out of the rodeo scene, the white rodeo scene. And then they created their own. That was just a heck of a lot more fun. A+. Hello.
One thing that you've mentioned in your commentary about the photos that I love is that they were a juxtaposition to like a lot of the cowboy photos that I think I grew up seeing, which were really stoic. And
good. Thank you for picking up on that. Well done.
Photos, and I really love that. So
A+. Yeah. So it took me too long to find it, but if you all recall the photo from the kids' rodeo, and the angelic little boy is, kind of hunched over his saddle, and his mom is adjusting his stirrup. Oh, well, my mom told me a story. She said, I'm just so darn proud of this little nipper. Last year, this was at the Snyder Youth Rodeo Finals. Last year, I hit the finals doing the goat tying and goat roping, and he got thrown off his horse. And I looked out there and I saw his face and I knew something was wrong, bad wrong, because he wasn't jumping up. And they finally got to his feet. He comes back behind the chute. One until he got back behind the chute that he let on, he broke his leg. And okay, so that is exactly what you're talking about, is just, how to be stoic. And so that's what, all the, by and large, the rodeos, other than the black rodeos I went to, that was a prime goal, and was to be stoic, be tough, never show pain. And versus the black rodeos, which, as you can see, was very emotive. It's all about feeling and community feeling. And I should put this picture in, but there's one guy, and he got thrown. He's bent over like this. Oh, I'm hurt. I'm bad about her. And then this lady stands up and says, the only thing that's hurt on you is your cigarettes. And everybody's like, it was like that. But that was like not holding back. And so yeah, that's A+. Good point. Head of class. Hello.
I lived in Houston.
That's, this is a side. I'm glad you mentioned Houston, because what I photographed, it was called the Soul Circuit. It was this area within 150-mile radius of Houston. That's where so carry on.
And there were also a lot of trail rides, black trail
Correct.
rides.
Yeah, which still continue.
Yeah. But another thing I remember is during the same time was when Earl Campbell was playing for the Houston Oilers alongside Bum Phillips, the coach. And Earl very much adopted the cowboy styles.
That's true. That's true.
I remember that, seeing these guys, they look a lot like Earl looked at that time with the hats. I remember seeing him at the rodeo in Houston one time. He and Bum made some appearance, and it just gave an idea of a marquee cowboy, image.
No,
that these guys have been doing for years.
Yeah. That's great. That was a marquee cowboy indeed. Kind of an outlier in that time and place. Yeah.
You said that you didn't have a telephoto lens, so you had to get right in there. Was that scary to get that close to the action?
Let me share with you the level of my complete oblivion and or idiocy. No, I was never really worried until I was at a rodeo and I saw a bull come out and just like go right for a photographer, pick this guy up by his horn and pitch him over his, and I was going, wait a minute. I, in fact, am not invisible. But I don't know, I was never hurt.
Did you ever work out a system for
Let me ask this lady right here. I salute the well-behaved.
Take for you to, like, the first rodeo you walked up on, you were probably like a total fish out of water. And how long did it take you to be like, everyone knew you, welcomed you, like felt like a part of it?
It took this long. I have to say, I'm asked again and again, did you feel weird? You're the only white person who's, and it literally never crossed my mind. I think I attribute that to growing up in an Air Force family that moved a lot. And so my normal was being the outsider weirdo, and, having to learn new cultures and learning fast and attempt to fit in. In fact, as I reflect on it, it's so poignant to me to think of how warmly I was welcomed, really without exception. There's such level of kindness. And, Rufus Green went out of his way to show me the ropes and introduce me. And that's to me poignant when I think about how welcome I was made to feel and how unwelcome Black spectators and competitors were made to feel at white rodeos. Mostly not allowed. What was your comment, Roy?
Judging by the size of the arenas in your pictures, did you work out any sort of system when a bull came out of the chute? where you wanted to be, what your means of escape was, or anything like that?
Wouldn't that have been a good idea? Excellent thought. Excellent
That's
thought.
a good idea.
I mean, honestly, I mean, I've lost all the technical knowledge I had at that point, but I must have had enough that, you know, my ratio of, you know, good shots to burn shots, it's pretty freaking low. Because, and I was always aware every time I click the camera, it's going to cost me money, money that I by and large did not have. So, no, I didn't ever work out any particular system, but I photographed a lot at the Diamond L, and wow, was that a gift from God to a photographer? I mean, as you can see, the lighting at those night rodeos were just fabulous. Versus the worst place on earth to photograph is at an indoor arena.
Oh, yeah.
Those, hello.
Did you develop your own?
Oh yes. Oh yes, I have sucked up years of toxic chemicals. You're like the developer, the fixer, you're sloshing it around in this little tiny room with a red light. I mean, had some great romantic moments there, but also, you know, did no doubt a lot of, no, it was all chemicals. It was all wet work. And I never quite made the transition to digital photography. So this wonderful thing happened after I pulled the tub out, and I said, well, you know, I can like spend the next 2 years learning digital editing, or I can donate to the Southwest Writers Collection. So I donated all my stuff to them. They digitized it, and then I got it back. And it was like having my children ransomed. You know, they were back, and they were exactly as they hadn't aged a day. But then, you know, then it was the process of digitally editing, and which fortunately a wonderful friend of mine came to my rescue and helped me with one of the great Texas photographers, Will Van Overbeck, and he wrote a book called Aggies Anyway. We had a great time. It was such a fun experience, and you know, may I offer myself as inspiration to anybody who's had a project they've sat on for decades. You know, it ain't over till it's over. Get it out there with whatever. But that was really a wonderful project to happen at this stage in my life, and also to not be typing, to be able to collaborate. And University of Texas Press was fantastic to work with. So it was just a blessing from so many points of view, and also went out and won more awards than any other book I've ever published. So International Photography Awards, and Smithsonian named it one of the 10 most notable books of the year. And going, well, thank you. Well, thank you. So history, you know, I was just there at the right time, and once again, now, you know, I stayed alive long enough. There's my tip to everyone. For your overnight publishing success, stay alive.
Living long is the best revenge. Right. With 30, 40 years having elapsed now, has the rodeo scene changed significantly?
Rodeo remains, and you know, not my opinion, but statistically the most segregated sport, and for a number of reasons. It takes a lot of money, and you have to be able to have some sort of support as you go off for a year, and you know, sponsors. There are some very notable Black champions, but the numbers are really small compared to. It's overwhelmingly remains a white sport.
What sort of financial organization does Ms. Carr have that she's able to do these every year?
Oh, you're talking about Gladys Carr? No. So those, and you know, P.S. the Diamond L no longer exists. Okay. It is gone. It's been gone. It's a legendary venue. Was a legendary venue for cowboys and cowgirls of color, but it is long, long gone. You know, Houston is all developed out that way on South Main. That's where it's located. No, those rodeos were really financially cobbled together, and there was a small entry fee, there was a small admission fee, and just you know, a lot of love and a lot of community work put them together. But no, Gladys Carr, she was an unpaid employee.
And the Dynamo parent.
She was a fabulous human being, and her family also as well. Yeah, wish there were more females in that world, had been more females in that world, but I didn't get to see. Hello.
Hi. There is a lot of written material in your book. Did you have someone help you research, or did you do all the research? There's a lot of it. There's so much history there.
Trying to think of what history you're
well, just the written material.
Well, that, you know, I mean, I talk about how I got involved in it, and all the other rodeos that I photographed, and then, you know, my experience. I tell the Rufus Green's story. That was a gift from God, and that thank God I did not store any of the photography stuff in my garage. Unfortunately, I did store my notes and the little cassettes I'd done. So, you know, putting the book together, and I had done many, many interviews with Rufus because he was a historian. And so I'm going through and trying to find a machine that would play these little micro cassettes, and played them. Most of them just wouldn't play at all. And so I sent one to this archive retrieval place restoration place in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, that was the interview with Rufus Green. And he talks about at the height of the Great Depression, he was adopted. He was a great roper from a tiny age, and he was adopted by a very wealthy family in Victoria and raised as one of their own, which kind of gave him the edge as far as being a pioneer and making it into the white rodeo world. But incredible. But that kind of history I got from interviews, and thank you. Well, if anybody, you know, wants something for Father's Day, or want to give themselves a Father's Day present, I'm selling and signing books back there. Oh, hey, it's Ellen.
You visited and photographed a lot of quirky stuff. What was it about the Black rodeos that really made you fall in love?
Boogie fever. The rodeo was playing Boogie Fever. You know? They were so damn much fun. I mean, it was just a party every time you walked. Everybody's there to have a good time, forget, drink, and laugh. And I mean, it was so damn much fun. One word, fun. Yeah.
And you were a journalism major at the University of Texas.
A+, so I was. I mean, a very poor one. I worked for the Daily Texan, and so the editor would send me on assignments. I'd come back and I would, like, you know this person's all her relationship with her mother, and, you know, her problem with allergies, and her bad guy she was dating, but not necessarily her last name, and or anything about the school bond issues. So the professor said, Sarah, you need to get into fiction officially. Fair enough.
That was going to be my next question, that you clearly are accomplished in photography, but you won the Austin's Best Fiction Writer for 10 times.
Wow.
And tied once.
Outright and one tie. And all of these wonderful books, how did you make that leap into fictional writing?
Actually, I kind of started in fiction because I was like writing, you know, angsty teen poems for 17 when I was in my late teens. And then, then at some point I started writing. Oh, I know. So my writing history is so tawdry. Anyway, I was madly in love with this guy at the University of Mexico. And early one morning, I went to pay a visit on my beloved, walked in on him in bed with somebody. And at that time, I was a French major. And I knew that if I remained in Albuquerque, I would get back with this slithering piece of awful. And I said, I must go to another continent. So I'm a French major, I'll go study. So I went to France, and I quickly found out that French people don't like to talk to you unless your French is really good. My French was. So I started to read. I got a job as an au pair, and 3-month-old baby. P.S. My French was better than le baby's. So no help there. I started reading photo romances. And so I was reading these, and I said, somebody is getting paid to write these. So when I got back, I looked up a comparable thing, which is True Confession. All the true confession, modern love, real. And just started to find those and study. And I hid them under my bed. My mom found them and she's burst into tears. She said, Sarah, my green cheek relatives back in Indiana read these. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm learning. Anyway, so that was my start in getting paid and publishing fiction. So I confessed to seducing my parish priest, stealing my mother-in-law's meatloaf recipe, and yeah, it was great training. It was fabulous training and paid my bills. And then I moved on to the illustrious romance novels. I did 5 of those, also paid bills. And I don't think Alamo House is up there, but that was the first quote unquote real novel I published. I wrote about Austin back in the days when it was still Austin.
It's great.
When our most famous resident was Willie Nelson, not Elon Musk. Yikes. Yikes. Hey, well, you are a lot of fun. They've lived up to your billing. Fun collection of folks. Thank you all very, very much. Don't miss